So the topic of my presentation at Education Week was entitled Partnerships between the public and the private sector. And I focused around two things, and one thing is particularly dear to my heart. One of the business models we have at Eduloan is a partnership with government and the public institutions, in particular the universities. They are state-owned, they're not private entities. And what we do in terms of that partnership or agreement with the universities is that we facilitate the loan repayment on a monthly basis via a salary deduction facility on the government payroll. And what this has enabled us to do is literally over the space of the last 16 years is to write or afford loans, which essentially is financial access to education, to about 620,000 government employees. And when I took a hard look at this business model and realized what it actually does in terms of that accessibility for education, is that it does a number of things. The first thing it does is that it says that government is absolutely committed to its employees, and thereby it puts in mechanisms like a salary deduction for a loan for purposes of education, and it allows that. And then I looked at corporate South Africa and I said, all right, where does this model exist in corporate South Africa? And the truth is it exists. It exists because as an employee of a corporate company, you have your medical aid deducted off your pay. You have your pension fund deducted off your pay. You have your provident fund. You have your UIF. So these deductions are all in place, and they form part of what the company packages to you, the employee, as part of its benefits. It's part of the employee well-being basket. So the question is, if government is seeing access to education as part of the basket of employee benefits, why isn't corporate South Africa? So my appeal is that corporate South Africa get into partnerships with companies like ourselves so that we can afford their employee base solid access to financial education. And it's not only for themselves, it's for their dependents as well. And what they're doing as corporate companies is that they're practicing good governance. You know, it's no longer about the employee and what you give them in terms of their remuneration. Employees are becoming more and more selective about what they want to work. And remuneration isn't the only thing they look at when they select where they're going to work. They look at the array of benefits. You know, can I study further? And oftentimes within these corporate companies, yes, there are bursaries, but the bursaries are available to a select few. Some companies give you loans for purposes of your being able to study, but it's only for material that's related to your particular job. You know, you can't, for example, ask your company to give you a loan so that you can finance your daughter who wants to go to university. So that was the one angle of my talk, and it was saying, corporate South Africa, are we being irresponsible by not including access to finance as part of the employee well-being mix? And then the second part of my talk was addressing the institutions themselves and those that benefit from funding for bursaries, to kind of say, how are you managing these bursary funds? You know, because oftentimes the universities will receive government funding, private funding, and they get these literally hundreds of millions of rands that they need to dish out to previously disadvantaged students. And they're oftentimes not sure how to actually dish that out. You know, how do you cater for a student's needs in totality, because they're not only coming to study. 9 out of 10 they come from a rural area, so it's all good and well that you cover their tuition, but what use is tuition for a student who has nowhere to sleep, who's on the streets and is hungry? So in order to cater for a student, you need to cater for the tuition, you need to accommodate that student, and you need to make sure that they're fed and that they have study material, books. And there I spoke about our bursary management solution called EduExtras, and just touched on how the solution aids both the institutions, the bursars, and the students.